Hey, you! Unsure of what to post on social media? Feeling out of your depth when it comes to global politics? Behind the times on the latest trends? Not completely sure which opinion will get you pilloried by mobs of angry strangers? Then try not posting anything! That's right, not posting anything is the new craze that's not sweeping the internet. Join the movement that literally no one has thought of as you let righteous indignation just sweep on past. Just take this hapless moron, Wayne. Ever since making Facebook posts on US politics, Wayne's IQ has dropped 15 points, and he's developed shingles. Don't be like Wayne. Start doing what no one on the internet has thought of. Try not posting anything.
But wait, I'm a Christian. I want to have a distinctive voice online.
We're glad to hear it, Bill. Here then is our foolproof 3-step plan. Step 1 we've already covered. Don't post stuff you don't understand. Step 2, make it clear in your bio that you're a Christian. Some prefer follower of the way, disciple of the Galilean, Padawan to the Nazarene. Or, if you're not ridiculously obtuse, maybe try Christian. That's step 2, state clearly that you're a Christian. And then step 3, and this one really is key, people, don't be a jerk. That's right, against all contrary inclinations and against the entire tide of jerkness engulfing the web, try not to be a jerk. Those steps again: resist the urge to post on things you don't understand, make plain that you're a Christian, and don't be a jerk. Follow these simple rules and you too might just survive this vitriolic shame storm we call social media.
Livecast, welcome to the livecast, welcome to the show.
Welcome everybody.
Welcome to the show.
Or as they say in YouTube, hey guys. Hey guys. Yeah.
So another Speak Life-esque start there to
why not?
Livecast.
Why not? Yeah, top 3 social media tips. I hope they save your life. They hopefully. I mean, if people weren't jerks, wouldn't that be amazing? If I wasn't a jerk, that would be.
It would be amazing. Yeah,
As I was writing that, I was thinking to myself, physician, heal thyself. You know? Don't post on things you don't understand.
I just never, I would never post anything on that.
No one would.
On that thing, would I?
No one would. But that's the thing about social media. It makes you into, like, your own press secretary. And you feel like you've got to make a press release.
Well, I'm amazed how many people post things. So I'm very careful. I don't post things if I don't feel like I can verify a source.
Right.
And that's something I've learned over time.
Right.
But basically I've got people who are friends who are giving opinions on various things. Like Brexit, maybe they're giving an opinion on Brexit, but yet they're also the people who copy and paste those statuses about notifying Facebook. And I think, well, if you do that, you probably can't have an opinion on Brexit, because
you shouldn't get a vote for a start.
Maybe so. Just saying, throwing that out there. So,
oh man, yes, yeah, and the number of people who think they could do better as prime minister, and and they can't spell the word there. Just, I'm not sure. And the issue of bios that are just a little bit pretentious. Have you come across the?
Yeah. Oh, we should have done. You should have said beforehand. We could have got our list of like favourite kind of ones that are just brilliant.
Do you have like a list?
Well, no, I don't. But I could. I could have come across some that they are.
Follower of the way, disciple of the Galilean, and Padawan to the Nazarene. Padawan to the Nazarene. I'm going to adopt that now. Yeah. Why not?
Why not? Yeah, go for it.
There seem to be a lot of people.
The one I like best, the person's one I saw who I like is saying like all my views. It just says all my views are my employer's views, and views are not my own, but they are my employer's.
Views are not my own. Joshua Lamachia from Sydney, Australia.
Wow.
Hello, Sydney, Australia. He
must be late over there or early. I don't know.
Yeah, very, very late. I wonder whether he stayed up for this, but when I tweeted out my when I said stay tuned for the top 3 social media tips, he actually came up with some 3 good ones, which I thought.
Oh really?
He said number 1.
Stop
remember
watching Speak Live.
Yeah. Unfriend Glen Scrivener. Let me guess. You can't delete your posts on the internet. Number one, remember that. Right. It is global. It is irreversible.
Even if you do delete it,
it's still
somebody's
there.
screenshotted it somewhere. And
And there's web crawlers that will have picked it up.
Found it somewhere.
Yep. You cannot delete your posts on the internet. Wow. Just everybody pause and remember that.
Well, that's all, folks. We're off now. We're gonna...
Well, like the Oscars, like Kevin Hart, so like something he tweeted, was it 8 years ago, 10 years ago?
Oh, yeah.
That's the reason he didn't
was he supposed to be presenting this year?
He was meant to be hosting on Sunday night.
It was a bit weird, the Oscars, wasn't it? Because, it happened.
I
didn't really know it happened. Well, I didn't watch it either, but I didn't know it happened until the next day.
Yeah.
Normally, everyone's talking about it, but...
Trending hashtags. It was like 8 of the top 10 trending hashtags
on Twitter.
Yeah,
I don't really go on Twitter.
Really?
No.
Well, that should be rule number 2. Delete Twitter. Remember, so Joshua Lamachia says you can't delete your posts on the internet. Remember that. Number 2, sometimes it's a Russian bot, but usually it's another image of God behind that avatar.
Right.
That's good to remember. Both sides of that statement are good to remember. Sometimes it is a Russian bot, but it's usually another image of God behind the avatar. Number 3, conversation is great, but offline conversation is greater. Yeah, those are very good. But ours were, don't feel like you have to post about everything. Say you're a Christian, and then don't be a jerk. So.
Well, that's. I think that last one is just a good general rule of thumb for life. So you can take that into the real world as well. So
guys, see how that works out for you this week. Try not being a jerk, and see if you have a different week, and then report back. Brilliant. Bill Lovell says howdy from Texas.
Good old Bill.
Howdy.
Good to see Bill again.
Howdy. And then he says pretentious. Moi. And he spelt pretentious correctly. Very good. Very good. That sounded a bit condescending, didn't it?
It's not like you at all. No.
So, yes, we are thinking today, and we're going to have a series in the next 4 weeks about the Bible, about just how immense the Bible is.
Yes.
Sorry,
you just threw me by saying the next 4 weeks, because I was like, aren't we putting one out every night? But
we are.
That's every night this week, so you're going to get a little... Well, I think you're probably going to see them in this anyway.
We're going to see them in this episode.
So you're going to see the whole series.
The whole of this week.
This week's series.
But then there are 3 other videos on the Bible.
Yeah, I know that, Glenn. Right?
For those following along at home. Thank you, Basil Exposition. For the folks at home, do you want to... Yeah.
Yeah, so we're going to get all of that through today.
We're going to do, basically this week's videos on the Bible are about the Bible is huge. It's huge. It's immense. Where do I begin? And then in the following 3 weeks, we're going to think about the Bible is old. Have we lost the original documents? The Bible is improbable is week 3. Can we trust the authors? And then the Bible is contradictory. How do we make sense of it? So, but this week, I thought we could sort of launch in with the Bible is huge, because often when people ask me questions about the Bible, I just always have to point out that your problem with the Bible has been given to you by the Bible. Because you live in the West, and if you happen to be in the West, and hello if you don't, but if you have been shaped by the Bible, and in fact the whole world's been shaped by the Bible, then probably the problems you have with the Bible have been given to you by the Bible. And we've just got 5 examples of that one reality to take you through in this episode. We're going to think about how people say the Bible is unscientific, people say the Bible is violent, people say the Bible is judgmental, people say the Bible is homophobic, and people say the Bible is pro-slavery. And at every point we're going to say, actually, the reason you think those things and the reason you point your finger at the Bible is because you happen to be standing on some assumptions, some presuppositions that are entirely biblical in their shape. And all that goes to show is that the Bible is much more immense than you perhaps imagined it to be. So should we have a look at number 1? Here's sort of the introduction to this whole idea, and it deals with that first problem that people have with the Bible, that the Bible is unscientific. Whether you believe in the Bible or not, it is an extraordinary book.
The Bible is, for better or worse, the foundational document of Western civilization, of Western values, Western morality, and Western conceptions of good and evil. Its careful, respectful study can reveal things to us about what we believe and how we do and should act that can be discovered in almost no other manner.
The Bible has built our civilization. It has transformed billions of lives. It has shaped us all so much that even our criticisms of the Bible assume a biblical view of reality. You may have problems with the Bible, but the thing is, you will end up assuming the Bible in order to critique the Bible.
So here are 5 examples of problems you might have with the Bible. Number 1. The Bible isn't scientific. Critics will say the Bible was written by Iron Age goat herders. This was Sam Harris's fear about Jordan Peterson trying to get people back into the Bible.
My concern is that it keeps us shackled to these Iron Age philosophies and these Iron Age conversations where we should be having a 21st century conversation about everything, ethics included.
Sam's right that we definitely shouldn't read the Bible as a textbook for quantum mechanics, because the Bible is not that kind of book. It is pre-scientific, chronologically speaking. It is non-scientific in the strict sense of the word, but it's not anti-scientific. In fact, the Bible gave us the scientific method. As C.S. Lewis said, men became scientific because they expected laws in nature, and they expected laws in nature because they believed in a lawgiver.
The Bible gave the West a view of nature, of our human capabilities, and of a grand order to the cosmos that birthed science. This view of the world was not obvious to any other non-biblical civilization, but science was built on that biblical worldview. And even today, the scientific enterprise depends on views of humanity and the universe that sound incredibly biblical. Like Brian Cox explaining the thinking behind the Large Hadron Collider.
That's what science and the Large Hadron Collider is all about. We can stare at the face of creation, smash matter together at energies never before achieved. We can stare at the face of creation.
We do science searching for a face to creation, an underlying explanation, universal order, cosmic harmony. And we search believing that somehow the brains of Homo sapiens living here in a small corner of the Milky Way galaxy are able to grasp these higher laws. If we don't recognize how biblical the whole thing is, it's either because we don't understand the Bible or we've taken it all for granted. So rather than discard the Bible, I think a truly scientific approach would be to investigate the foundations. Maybe it's time we in the West picked up the Bible again. That's problem number 1. Stay tuned for problem number 2 that people have with the Bible.
We'll save that.
John, as quick as I can to jump out before you
We'll
get the
save
end
that.
jingle.
We'll save that. The final jingle is worth hanging around for, people.
It's worth being on the internet for.
It's
that
a
one
treat.
there.
It's a treat.
Yep.
So yeah.
So yeah, the science question.
Mm-hmm.
So when we went to Southampton the other week for the university mission, the lunch bar, they got the science question kind of again.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm always quite surprised that the science one keeps coming up. Like, I kind of just always think, like, are we not a bit past this now? Like, where people have this very cliched idea, like it's science versus religion and that's it. And I think, and obviously we're not. But I wonder whether part of it is, and I think a lot of these things, not just the science one, but like as Christians, we've often given thought to some of these things because we have to, because we get these things thrown at us. Whereas if you're just happily going along, following the ways of the world and going with the flow, you're not going to come up against many objections. You're not going to find a lot of people just objecting to, there's no one throwing stuff at science really going, science isn't true.
Right.
I mean, there's a bit of that, we know, but on the whole, that's not the way society goes.
Right.
So they haven't got Christians attacking them again on the whole.
Yeah.
Just saying, well, it's either, it's religion or science.
Yeah.
And I'm going to throw my religion at you.
Yeah.
So people haven't got to defend it in the same way that we do.
Yeah.
And I'm often just surprised in loads of conversations. I just, like the resurrection talk came up again, and I just think, well, surely people have thought about the evidence for the resurrection. They have not just discarded it without thinking about it critically in any way, have they? And then posted about it on the internet. Like, oh wait, they haven't thought about it at all, actually, have they? No. But yet they have a formed opinion.
Well, at Southampton University, they did a great thing, and Bethany Squires is watching again. Bethany Squires was leading that mission to Southampton. Hello, Bethany. But wisely, they put on the first lunchtime talk was a scientist.
Science one.
Talking about God and science and saying that they are not ultimately in conflict. And it's always a good idea to get that question dealt with, like, early on. because actually 2 weeks before the mission began, Southampton University Christian Union invited both John Lennox and Peter Atkins. John Lennox is a professor of mathematics, Peter Atkins, professor of chemistry, both at Oxford. And they had a God versus science kind of debate. Did you hear any of that?
I watched it all. I watched it all on YouTube.
And there's a moment where John Lennox asks Peter Atkins, what do you say to the dozens and dozens of Christians who have won Nobel Prizes for science? And he said, grow up. You're like, which ironically sounded like the most petulant, childish thing that anyone could possibly say.
Yeah.
Like, grow up. But
also
with a professor of chemistry, he thinks it's a punch-up, it's a fight, and Christianity is lost.
Yeah, and I mean, there are other debates probably, aren't there, where the scientists put forward a better case, because Peter Atkins was basically, in all seriousness, not only was he incredibly rude throughout, which just undermines your position generally.
Yeah, especially when you tell other people to grow up.
Yeah. But he really hadn't really engaged with a lot of the stuff. He just goes, well, it's all a load of nonsense. And, you can dismiss anything if you just say, well, it's all a load of nonsense. You don't have to think about it at all. And he really did come across as not having given any thought to it. As someone who was claiming it to be all about rationality and reason and empirical evidence, he didn't seem to actually have done a lot of thinking on the issue.
Which is odd, because you can go back 25 years and on YouTube you can look for William Lane Craig versus Peter Atkins. And these are the kinds of videos that actually deserve the epithet destroyed.
Right.
Because William Lane Craig absolutely did destroy Peter Atkins in debate. We're going back decades now, but he still hasn't learned.
You think that you'd not want that to happen again?
Yeah, but he just sort of doubles down. And
I mean, you see it with the Sam Harris clip as well, when he says we shouldn't be talking about these Iron Age kind of mythology things, 21st century conversations. But yet, time and time again, when you sit down with people who either are Christians or aren't Christians, and you open the Bible with them, they start going like, "Oh, I can't believe how relevant this is to my life." You know, and you read through bits of Isaiah when it talks about what the people of Israel were like, and and there's the people who drunk in the streets and vomiting, and all this justice isn't done. And you look at it and you go, this could easily be 21st century Britain, But I think people like Sam Harris
Peter
probably
Atkins or whatever,
probably haven't done a lot of Bible reading. On the whole. Yeah.
But they want to fly a flag for rationality and evidence-based reason. Like, well, here's the evidence. Why don't you have a look at it? So I think so often when the issue of science comes up for people, what they really have in mind is perhaps natural selection, like the theory of Darwinian evolution, like as one area of debates. That is an area of debate between Christians and non-Christians, and within non-Christian communities as well. There's that story, the Chinese geneticist who went to a conference in California, and he presented this conference in California, where he happened to critique one element of one aspect of the neo-Darwinian synthesis, and the room was just icy afterwards. And he said to his host, like, what happened? They didn't like the data. Like, they didn't like the way I presented. Did I make any social faux pas? And he's just said, yeah, you can't really have a go at Darwin at these kinds of conferences. Like, it's just not on. And the Chinese guy said, that's interesting. Like, in my country, you can't speak against the government, but you can speak against Darwin. Yeah. In this country, you can speak against the government. You cannot speak against Darwin. Sure. And so, for a lot of people, it's about a punch-up over Darwinian evolution. But I think it's wise to kind of go to 30,000 feet and talk about the scientific enterprise more generally. Where, you quoted C.S. Lewis in the video, men became scientific because they expected laws in nature.
Because they believed in a lawgiver.
Right. And so just the fact that science works is extraordinary. Einstein said, the regularity of the universe, its comprehensibility is a miracle, right? So, all the science depends on a miracle. Yep. And actually, on the first page of the Bible, you get an explanation for why that can happen. Genesis chapter 1 is often seen as the site of the battle which the Bible has lost. Because Genesis 1 has 6 days of creation, and Darwin says no, and so the Bible is lost. But zoom up to 30,000 feet and figure. Let's have a more grown-up discussion about Genesis chapter 1. What we've got in Genesis chapter 1 is a good God makes a good, regular, reliable world that operates according to evening and morning, and there are stars that come out, and then the moon, and then the sun, and then you've got a regular, reliable, good world, a good God looking over it, and you've got humanity made in God's image. Therefore, they are able to grasp the mysteries of the cosmos. And actually, to have those three things is the prerequisite for science. And until the Bible comes along, and without the Bible, you just don't have. You don't have those three things.
Yep.
You've got the Greeks who believe in an orderer, a first mover above, and they believe in human minds, but they don't believe in a good regular world that they can kind of investigate. Or you've got the Chinese who kind of believe in a regular world that you can investigate and sort of minds in here, but they don't believe in a God that's going to give you the grounding for your laws. And so the Chinese didn't come up with science, they came up with great technology. And the Greeks didn't come up with science, they came up with great philosophy and maths and that sort of thing. But only the Bible is actually going to give you the scientific enterprise. So I say Genesis 1 is really pro-science. And the Bible itself has given us the scientific method. So to call the Bible unscientific is odd.
Yep.
Odd. That's in a word. So that's our first problem that people kind of bring to the Bible, that they will say that it's unscientific. But actually, when you take away the Bible, like Aristotle thought that men have more teeth than women.
Who was it who was something about bees?
Bees, yeah. He said that bees have 4 legs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you would have thought. I mean, you could have got a bee.
Maybe count them.
Yeah, that'd be a good start.
What would happen? 1, 2, 3, 4, 3, 4.
It's the equivalent of me just going on Facebook now and going,
yeah,
bees only have 4 legs.
Yeah.
And someone else will see that and they'll go, Paul said that bees only have 4 legs, so that must be true.
But for 1,000 years, 1,000 years he taught it and people believed it because he didn't believe in a regular world out there that you could investigate empirically. He just believed that if you reasoned it out in your head, then this is the way things must be. And bees must, belong to this class of insect, and therefore they must have 4 legs. And away went. And heavier items fall faster than lighter items, and women have less teeth than men, and all sorts of things that there are very obvious experiments you can do, but no one thinks to do the experiments. They're incredibly clever people, right? Aristotle, very, very, very clever. Plato and Aristotle together. Every other bit of philosophy is just footnotes to Plato and Aristotle. It really is. But they're not scientific because they don't believe in Genesis 1, and they don't believe in a good, regular world that is open and accessible to the senses, and that will triangulate with your mind in here and with the laws above. So we think the Bible's unscientific because we don't have an experience of a totally non-biblical culture. And then we would realize you don't have a leg to stand on at all outside of the Bible.
Yeah, you can't see the forest for the trees kind of thing. You're so...
Fish don't know that they're wet.
Yeah, exactly. All that stuff, isn't it?
Yeah, it's all that. So that was objection number 1, that the Bible is unscientific. But let's have a look at another objection that people bring to the Bible, and we'll show how actually the reason people have the problem is because of the Bible. So let's have a look at the Bible is violent.
Last time we were looking at problems that people have with the Bible, and we began to see how every problem we have assumes a biblical worldview. Well, here's another objection to the Bible that quietly assumes the Bible. It's violent.
Come and see the violence inherent in the system!
Think of the wars of the Old Testament, for instance. We find the book of Joshua more than uncomfortable to read as the Israelites conquer the land of Canaan. But notice that discomfort, because you didn't get those qualms from the classical world. As historian Tom Holland points out about Julius Caesar,
Cicero's great contemporary Caesar is, by some accounts, slaughtering 1 million Gauls and enslaving another 1 million in the cause of boosting his political career. And far from feeling in any way embarrassed about this, he's kind of promoting it. And so when he holds his triumph, people are going through the streets of Rome carrying billboards, boasting about how many people he's...
Caesar boasted that he had killed 1 million Gauls and enslaved 1 million more. If we're critical of war, it's probably because we've imbibed Matthew chapter 5 and 26 and Ephesians chapter 6. There the Bible says, turn the other cheek, put your sword away. Those who live by the sword will die by the sword. Our struggle is not against flesh and blood. It's the teaching of the Bible that gives us our problem with violence. The Romans didn't give us a problem with violence. The Greeks didn't give us a problem with violence. Islam didn't give us our problem with violence. When it comes to this objection to the Bible, that it's violent, it turns out that we're standing on the Bible to make it. Stay tuned for the third problem the world has with the Bible.
There you go.
Here we are.
Yeah. Like, the fact that you would even say that the Bible is violent as a problem probably means you've been taught by Jesus of Nazareth. Like, probably.
Yep.
You know, and that's why I think the Tom Holland example is just so interesting. Here's a guy whose speciality was both the classical world of the Greeks and Romans and the world of Islam. And so some of his great books have... he's written 2 books on Rome and 1 book on the origins of Islam. And in both cases, when you look at a Julius Caesar who kills a million Gauls and enslaves a million more, or you look at Muhammad who waged war, none of them think that the bearing of the sword like is something to be ashamed of or hidden away. Like, it's absolutely, you know, strength and honor. It's absolutely, you know, that kind of culture. So like the idea that you would look at violence and then go, oh, I don't like that, is, if we're thinking that way, it's because the Bible has taught us that, you know. If we think that blood sports are repugnant and vicious and therefore, you know, something that is a vice, it's probably because actually Christianity has been teaching us on these things.
Yeah, and we can see, you know, that we know out of Roman society, I mean, certainly there was no hesitation in gladiatorial games, you know, bloodthirsty sports like that. You know, that was your kind of Saturday afternoon entertainment. You know, like going to watch the football. Well, actually, you go and watch the gladiators slog it out and be torn to pieces or whatever. But the very fact, again, I think it's the case. It's the science, not just with science, but with all these things and other areas as well. Like when we've talked about morality. There's these underlying assumptions under there that people have, and you want to prod and say, okay, but why do you think that is wrong? Why do you think violence is wrong? Or any of these things? Why do you think people should be nice to each other and treat each other well?
Well, sure, it's just, isn't it obvious? Well,
yeah, it's that kind of thing, isn't it? And I think that is the case, that people are just unaware, because, you know, we said it earlier, didn't we? People take things as a given. Right. It's just a given that this is what people like, but actually that's not what we see in history. Right. Particularly from those cultures that Tom Holland talks about.
Yeah. So in the debates between Christopher Hitchens and Doug Wilson, there's a documentary called Collision that was made about their debates that they had back in the day. I forget when that was, maybe like 2009 or something. But again and again, Chris Hitchens would ask, you know, what about the Old Testament wars? Weren't they evil? And again, Doug Wilson would answer with the phrase, by what standard?
Sure.
And there's a great clip of Christopher Hitchens saying, good question. And Doug Wilson saying, I know.
They got on quite well, didn't they, I think?
Yeah,
outside. I've seen a bizarre... This is a bit of a segue and something into, but I see there's a clip of them in a cab.
Yeah, that's Collision.
Where they're chatting. That's it, is it?
Yeah.
And because one of them, they say to each other, "What's the question you find most difficult to deal with?" I think. Yeah.
Yes.
No, so worth checking out. Go and have a look.
Collision
Go and
is
find
good.
it.
Collision is good because they just went on a tour around the place and did debates in different places, and I think there was a book, and so they were both promoting the book together.
Struck me that, you know, they seem to get along well off the stage. I mean, I wonder whether Lennox and Atkins will
maybe
cab tour like that.
They did catch it. They did get a car back to Oxford, the same car.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Sat in silence.
Apparently, apparently they got on really well. So, and I think from what I have heard, John Lennox sort of said, "Peter, why do you do it like that?" He says, "For theatre, darling, for theatre."
Well, fair enough.
You know, whatever. But yeah, we take it for granted that life is valuable and that every drop of blood spilt is precious. Just do a bit of history and you realize that has not been obvious.
It's a very new idea.
Yeah. No. Now, there is something to be said for the fact that, like seriously, we used to put people in stocks not too long ago.
Sure.
You know, and you know, dog fights and cockfighting is still, you know, popular in different places, and probably, you know, just even a few hundred years ago, people would go and they would watch a hanging, and that was a day out, right? You know,
yeah, fun for the whole family.
So we're not saying that Christianity has entirely done the job in terms of.
Well, no, but I think a lot of that stuff is because no one ever claims, even when they become a Christian,
right,
that there's a complete transformation in the sense that I'm now no longer sinful,
right?
And I think those things are kind of in our flesh, you know, the desire for, you know, there is a kind of maybe I speak for myself here, I don't know. there is a sort of morbid curiosity within. You know, I think whereas. You know, I think in human nature, in seeing things we're not familiar with.
Yeah, you slow down at the car crash.
Absolutely,
you know.
yeah, and you get and you realise there's no reason for us to be going this slowly. Literally, everybody has just crawled down, down to a crawl, haven't they?
Yeah.
So you know, I think those things still go on because actually, there's still, you know, the flesh is at war.
Yes.
Inside us, anyway.
Yes. Yes. But yeah, what is it that tells us that is wrong? Well, there was this guy who said, "Put your sword away. Those who live by the sword will die by the sword." A stunning thing to say, and it's the sort of thing that's got Tom Holland, a secular historian, really, really, really thinking. And it'll be very interesting to see the book that he comes out with, where he's kind of talking about his spiritual journey that sort of began by comparing biblical cultures to the others. So I really look forward to reading that. Let's move on to the third objection that people make to the Bible, and we'll show how actually the critique assumes biblical values. The third critique is that the Bible is judgmental. The Bible's impact is so immense on Western culture that even our problems with the Bible have been given to us by the Bible. We've been thinking about different objections that people make to the Bible, which quietly assume the Bible's worldview. Here's the third objection people make to the Bible. It's judgmental. Some people look at the Bible's views on hell and dismiss it as a book of fire and brimstone. But even as the objection is being made, the basic outlook is shaped by the Bible. On the one hand, there is an underlying belief that the arc of history is long, but it bends towards justice. That comes from a speech by Martin Luther King.
Let us realize that the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends toward justice.
Martin Luther King has said it, and it resonates with us. We have a sense that there's something called justice. There is right and wrong. There's a moral standard that is over and above us. But listen to how Martin Luther King grounds that belief.
Let us realize that William Cullen Bryant is right. Truth crushed to earth will rise again. Let us go out realizing that the Bible is right. Be not deceived. God is not mocked. Whatsoever a man soweth, that shall he also reap. This is our hope for the future. With this faith, we will be able to sing in some not too distant tomorrow with a cosmic past tense. We have overcome. We have overcome. Deep in my heart, I did believe we would overcome.
It is a biblical idea that the moral arc of the universe bends towards justice. But how do we feel about that? Well, the part of us that loves justice is happy with that, and the part of us that perverts justice is not happy. You see, all of us contribute to the injustice of this world, so actually you and I want mercy. But where are we going to find mercy? Not in the Greco-Roman world. They went around saying strength and honor.
Strength and honor. Strength and honor. Strength and honor.
Vengeance was a huge part of their worldview.
And I will have my vengeance. In this life or the next.
But Christ comes in the Bible to take our judgment and to give us his grace. And he's taught us, therefore, to pass on the forgiveness that we've received from him. That teaching overturned the Roman world. It overturned the classical way of thinking. Now we think of forgiveness and mercy as strengths, not weaknesses, which is an extraordinary turnaround. So with those sensibilities, we come to the Bible and we are faced with judgment passages on the one hand and mercy passages on the other, and we don't know how to fit those together. But whatever problems we have with the Bible, really it's the Bible that has shaped our assumptions. Stay tuned for the fourth problem that the West has with the Bible. So that first one on justice being kind of the desire of our hearts, it's kind of a yes and a no. In one sense, we like the idea of justice
for justice for
enemies.
Others.
Yeah.
Against others.
That's
when
right.
They've wronged us.
But yes, to vote for justice is like turkeys voting for Christmas in another sense as well, isn't it? But you hear lots of people say, the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends towards justice, and Barack Obama actually had that woven into a rug that's in the Oval Office, or at least it was in the Oval Office when Barack Obama was there. So there's this idea that we like, that we're heading somewhere good. And you get even, secular psychologists like Steven Pinker kind of writing The Better Angels of Our Natures, and he sort of talks about, history's getting better and we're heading somewhere. We've got this sense that we're heading somewhere. But of course, unless you've got a grand narrative in which someone's in charge,
there's no reason that will continue to be the case.
Why should we be getting anywhere? Who's driving the car? Oh, nobody. But it's definitely going somewhere good. Okay. Now that's belief, right? That's faith. Come on. But, so Bertrand Russell, who wrote Why I'm Not a Christian famously, at the beginning of the last century, he talks about his beliefs, and his beliefs do not allow you to say what Martin Luther King Jr. says and what so many people want to believe. Bertrand Russell says that man is the product of causes which had no prevision of the end they were achieving, that his origin, his growth, his hopes and fears, his loves and his beliefs are but the outcome of accidental collocations of atoms, that no fire, no heroism, no intensity of thought and feeling can preserve an individual life beyond the grave, that all the labours of the ages, all the devotion, all the inspiration, all the noonday brightness of human genius are destined to extinction in the vast death of the solar system, and that the whole temple of man's achievements must inevitably be buried beneath the debris of a universe in ruins. All these things, if not quite beyond dispute, are yet so nearly certain that no philosophy which rejects them can hope to stand. Only within the scaffolding of these truths, only on the firm foundation of unyielding despair, can the soul's habitation henceforth be safely built. Amen!
But just try and enjoy your day.
Stop worrying.
Stop worrying. There's probably no gods. Just enjoy yourselves. No.
Within the scaffolding of
the
unyielding
debris of
despair.
a ruined universe, or whatever.
Yeah, destined to death, and you're not gonna start an MLK like movement.
It seems unlikely, doesn't it?
With that belief, are you? So but so many secular people basically have Bertrand Russell's view of the universe, but they want to hold on to Martin Luther King's view of the future.
Yep.
Pick. Honestly, you got to pick one. You can't have both. But then you say, okay, well, I want to pick the Martin Luther King thing. We're like, okay, so all things are heading towards justice. Okay, have you been a source of injustice in the world? Oops. So we need justice. We also need mercy. And have you seen? There's a brilliant Bono interview. So there's this guy asking Bono about his Christian faith, and we must be going back 15 years now. But the interviewer kind of asks him also, and Bono says some amazing stuff. He does C.S. Lewis's Mad, Bad, or God thing, and he kind of says, the sort of person who makes the claims that Jesus made, they're either mad or bad, or they must be who they say they are, and so he makes that case. And then the other guy kind of talks to him about judgment and that sort of thing, and Bono says, look, I'm absolutely convinced that there's something called karma out there, that a man reaps what he sows, and what you put out comes back to you. I'm absolutely convinced that there's justice woven into the universe, but I'm holding on for grace. I'm holding on because I need grace, because I've done a lot of cruddy things in my life, and so and he does this really beautiful kind of law and gospel kind of proclamation to the guy, and it fits really into what we're talking about here. That I think there is justice woven into the universe, and I think the moral arc of the universe is bending towards some kind of judgment thing, but we've got to therefore bank on mercy, and of course the Bible comes along and teaches that mercy triumphs over judgment, and that for those in Christ there is now no condemnation. And so there's wonderful mercy stuff in the Bible, and there is the reality of judgment stuff. And the West has been grown up with those realities.
Yep.
And so we do believe in justice and we do believe in mercy.
And that hasn't grown, that hasn't grown out of the classical civilizations. I mean, you don't have even today. I mean, I think we talk about, don't we? Kind of maybe it comes up in the next video about
homophobia,
homophobia, sexuality, and stuff. Actually, the difference between like the East and the West. So the East has a far bigger problem with the idea of forgiveness because they're much more about honor and shame and family and that kind of thing there.
Yes.
Whereas we all love forgiveness, but they don't really have an issue with the kind of traditional
sexual
ethics, whereas the West does.
Yeah.
So you know, when people might think, people would assume, wouldn't they, in the West, that forgiveness, mercy are inherently good things, and everybody just recognises that. Again, they're a given. But you say, well, you actually just go to the West. Don't even have to go back into history. Just go to the East, and you'll find all these cultures where that is not a given at all.
Right.
And they would say, no, mercy and forgiveness are a weakness. And
I
mean, you don't get ahead in life
by
forgiving people and showing mercy. You want to learn them a lesson. Show some justice.
Dare we mention Liam Neeson?
No.
So here is a guy who's making a public confession of something that he couldn't have been more clear about being ashamed of.
Yep.
Beginning, middle, and end of his recounting of a tale of how he wanted vengeance on any black man because a black man had raped his friend, and so he went, walking through a part of town where he might have found a black man, and he said, he's talking about it in the context of, isn't this appalling? I can't believe I did this. Isn't this ridiculous? It happened 40 years ago, but what a monster I can be. And then the rest of Twitter was like, you can be a monster? You monster! Everybody, he's a monster. Get him!
Pitchforks at the ready.
Yeah. So is there forgiveness anymore? And you just think there's that great comment about modern life that these days everything is permitted and nothing is forgiven.
Yeah.
And that was a pretty Greek worldview, Everything's permitted.
You'll forever be
Yeah.
tarnished.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah, yeah. And who was it who says about the Covington High kid in the MAGA hat? He said, no one need ever forgive this kid.
Yeah, I can't remember who it was.
Was it Reza Aslan? Or was it
I'm not sure.
It probably wasn't him. It was
I don't know. Reza Aslan said he'd punch him in the face.
Yeah.
That was his solution to the whole thing.
Yeah, which goes to show we are, drifting from our biblical moorings, let's say. But yeah, so the whole idea of judgment, I think there's something deep within us that resonates with the idea of justice at the end of all things, and something deep within us that cries out for mercy. And actually, uniquely, the Bible gives that to us. So whatever problems we have, either with the judgment texts or the mercy texts, it's probably because we've been shaped for millennia by this book. Cool. Should we go on to clip number 4? Here's the problem, the fourth problem that people have with the Bible. Sometimes people say it's homophobic.
Let's explore a fourth problem people raise with the Bible. It's homophobic. Watch this compelling vision for same-sex marriage and notice how shaped it is by the Bible.
No law is gonna change us. We have to change us. Whatever God you believe in, we come from the same one. Strip away the fear, underneath it's all the same love. About time that we raised up.
In one sense, this music video called Same Love is giving us a progressive vision for marriage. In another, it's portraying some incredibly traditional and biblical views. Here we have marriage being presented as the heart and soul of human hope, dreams and flourishing. And a marriage here is a permanent, exclusive covenant union taking place between two people, and only two people. And it's happening before God and society more widely. All of those things are profoundly biblical, far more than you might know. Think of all the ways you could order sexual relationships. Think of all the ways humanity has ordered sexual relationships in history. You'll notice that the assumptions behind this music video are incredibly biblical. It's just that they want this profoundly biblical idea of marriage to be open to people of the same sex. And the reason it should be open is that we've all come from God. That's why the song is called Same Love, because before God we're all the same, all equal. This is another thoroughly biblical view. It's taught on page 1 of the Bible that man and woman are equally in the image of God. At that point, the traditional comeback is that equal does not mean interchangeable. I love my children equally, but I don't love them interchangeably. So, men and women are equal, but they're not interchangeable in the marriage relationship. That's where the disagreement happens, and you might take a different view. Okay, well, we can have that discussion. But even as we have the disagreement, let's just acknowledge that we're having a debate while assuming some incredibly biblical truths. The Bible is so huge, even our disagreements with the Bible come from the Bible. Next time we'll look at the fifth and final problem that we have with the Bible, that it's pro-slavery.
There it is.
Yep, there it is.
And is this a problem that people have with the Bible? Is this a question that comes up in evangelism? You bet that it is. But it is interesting that, it's only been relatively recently that someone like Peter Tatchell, who's a very prominent gay rights activist here in the UK, he's actually from Australia, he lives in England, but only a few years ago, really, did he turn from saying that, why should the gay community want marriage, which is just so obviously Christian? Like the Bible, like the Bible's got this view for like monogamous, exclusive, relationships that are covenanted, that you can't get out of, between only two people, for the rest of your life. Like, okay, that was interesting, but why is it that you would want to say, yes, that's exactly the kind of way we want to order sexual relationships, it's just we want to jump into that thing, as gay couples? And so for years and years and years, for far longer in his life than he's accepted gay marriage, he was against gay marriage, because he was just saying, actually marriage, the marriage you want to buy into is just utterly biblical.
Yep.
And I'm not sure we want to do that. Why should we want to do that thing? Which is that's just really interesting to me, and I just think it goes to show that, like, so often the debates that we have around gay marriage, for instance, are just everyone's actually assuming a whole bunch of biblical stuff, just tacitly. No one's admitting to it. So, like, even the idea that there should be like two members together, covenanted in unbreakable, exclusive love. Like why should we raise children in that environment? Why not a commune? Why not a kibbutz? Why not free love, baby? But the very idea that everything gets funneled into, like, what are we going to do about this thing called marriage? Just goes to show how marriage has utterly shaped us in the West, for good. Absolutely for good. And then, the second argument that the gay community want to make is, well, because we're all equal, then we should all equally have access to that thing. But again, the idea of equality, it's on page 1 of the Bible. It's more difficult to ground outside of the Bible, So the fact that men and women are equally in the image of God is just an extraordinary thing for a Near Eastern, book to say, 3 millennia ago or longer. Aristotle, writing 1,000 years after Moses, said that women are immature, deficient, deformed, and a bit monstrous. The idea of the equality of the sexes or the equality of all people is just nonsense to him. Plato taught that there are people whose souls are gold, silver, bronze, and like gravel. And you can enslave the gravel people. You can totally enslave the gravel people, as we'll see. So the assumptions that we bring, and different people take different views, and we take a traditional view of marriage here at Speak Life. But even the debate goes to show how everyone on every side has been shaped utterly by the Bible. It's that massive.
Yeah. And I think we've spoken before about the way that the idea of people being equal, it just isn't an obvious thing. It's not, again, a given, as we see from Aristotle's views. But I swear we talked about someone else who said, you just look at stuff and you say, well, look at this guy.
Yeah.
He's 6'8" and he's built like a tank.
Yes. And there's Glen.
In what sense
Yeah.
Are we talking about the sort of saying the word equal loses any?
Yeah. What do you
any
mean by
meaning,
equal? Yeah.
You know, if you start saying all these people are equal.
Yeah.
You know, the person who's a genius compared to the person who can't do 2 + 2. In what sense are they equal?
Yeah. It doesn't make any sense. Like it's a mythology to believe that. Sure, you know, this guy is smarter than me, he's taller than me, he's stronger than me, he's richer than me, you know, he's better looking than me, he's healthier than me, but we're equal. You know, like, who's that guy?
Who is he?
Let's get him in. He sounds much better. But like, yeah, he's better than me on every count you could possibly imagine. Oh, but we're equal. In what sense? What does the word equal even mean anymore? So the whole equal rights movements and all that kind of stuff is like thoroughly biblical. It's just that the word equal then comes to mean identical.
Sure.
And instead of, you know, so that music video is called Same Love, right? But actually men and women are not the same. They're equal. They're not the same. You know, and no parent says to their children, "I love you" interchangeably. You know, like, I love you interchangeably. I know I love you equally. And even if they say, you know, I have the same love for you all, we all know that that's not exactly correct, is it? You don't, like, you have a different textured love for different people. It doesn't mean there's higher or lower, better or worse. But equality doesn't steamroller all differences. So that's the sort of the traditional pushback against progressive views of marriage. But the idea of equality and the idea of marriage, we're on home turf. This is the world the Bible built. It really is. So that was the number 4 thing that 4 problem that people have with the Bible. And then fifthly, we'll have a look at the final critique of the Bible. Is the Bible pro-slavery? The Bible is so huge, even our disagreements with the Bible come from the Bible. We've been looking at 5 different accusations that people in the West often make of the Bible. Here is the 5th accusation, that it's pro-slavery. There are Old Testament laws concerning bondservants in Israel. That strikes us as, at the very least, troubling because of how we view slavery in the West. But why do we view slavery the way that we do? Plato and Aristotle taught that some people were born to be slaves. Muhammad was not just pro-slavery, he held slaves. But we think of slavery as obviously wrong. Why? Well, it is from the gospel of Christ, from the example of Christ, and from the teaching of the New Testament, which produced an incredible ripple effect that eventually led to the overturning of slavery. Historian Tom Holland puts it like this.
But compacted into this very, very small amount of writing was almost everything that explains the modern world.
Well, the Western world, as we take for granted,
Yes, but also the way that the West has then moved on to shape, you know, concepts like international law, for instance. So the fact, you know, concepts of human rights, all these kind of things, ultimately, they don't go back to Greek philosophers. They don't go back to Roman imperialism. They go back to Paul.
Some of the humanists
Paul really
and atheists,
is, you know, his letters, I think, are, along with the four Gospels.
It's a good clip.
Yeah. Well, you have to wait till Friday.
Yeah,
for the whole thing.
On Friday. Or you can go now and search for Tom Holland and Tom Wright.
Tom Wright, yep, on Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, he talks about the ripple effect of the biblical teaching is just so utterly unlike Plato and Aristotle, who taught that, you know, nature tells you that some people are born to be slaves and others are born to be masters. Some are born to be living tools who are wielded by their slave masters. And the New Testament says otherwise, and the Old Testament says otherwise. Obviously, you've got this narrative in the Bible that goes from creation, and there's total equality from Genesis 1 and 2, and then you've got fall, Genesis 3, and you do have the laws of Moses, which Jesus says in Matthew 19 are deliberately non-ideal, but that are a response to sin, and that's become fulfilled in Jesus Christ, who was the servant of the Lord, who became a ransom to release many. And then the Apostle Paul starts making these revolutionary writings, and then Tom Holland says, yeah, that's actually like the the stone dropping in the middle of the pond, and the ripple effects go out. And for Tom Holland, the secular historian, he can see no other explanation for why it was that Christians, and actually very biblical evangelical Christians, who abolished slavery, the only kind of time anyone has ever actually overturned it. And so we might think that we've outgrown the Bible. Actually, it goes to show that we've grown from the Bible. We've grown within the Bible. And just as the Bible is a developmental text, as Jordan Peterson might call it, it's also a text that has developed us. And if we come to it and we read passages in the Old Testament, and there are various verses I don't know quite what to do with, and we've got a video with Peter Williams where he talks us through what to do with a couple of verses in Exodus. But even the questions we have about why were there bondservants in the Old Testament, the fact that we're even asking that question is because the Bible has shaped us to recognize that we shouldn't rule over one another in that sort of sense. So the Bible is huge. That is our first week on the Bible. And then in future weeks, we're going to think about the Bible is old. Have we lost the original? The Bible is improbable. Can we trust the authors? The Bible is contradictory. How do we make sense of it? And we hope that this will be useful to you. We also hope that it'll be useful for people who have started to take the Bible seriously, because they see how the West is kind of drifting every which way. And there are a lot of people, and Jordan Peterson is part of a movement, a lot of people who are, basically rediscovering the Bible and wanting to know how to get stuck into it. So next week, we're going to do a video on, well, where do we begin? If the Bible is so huge.
Yeah.
What's the way in? And what is the way in, Paul?
Well, ultimately, the Gospels is a good place to start. So picking up a biography of Jesus' life. So we're going to look in our first video at whether we can really trust the Gospels. Let's kind of delve into that a bit more. But I mean, if you're listening now and you're already kind of thinking, well, I don't want to wait till next week, I just want to get stuck in. Grab a Gospel, Matthew, Mark, Luke, or John. I think Mark is a great one because it's a little short one, easy to read. Luke is very good, I think. I mean, they're all good, but no. So I wouldn't go for number 3. No. Luke is good because it's written for Gentiles. So there's a lot of stuff in Matthew where if you don't have a lot of knowledge of Jewish stuff, some of it just can pass you by. So Luke is a great one because it's written for people who weren't Jews. So Mark is short, so they're both easy ones to get into. And then we also, I think we talk on the video in the bit we didn't quite get there, that you can start looking at the Reading Between the Lines, which is our daily kind of Bible devotional, which is on Facebook and on YouTube. So they come out every day on Facebook. They're already there, all on YouTube. You can get audio of them and stuff from our website as well, speaklife.org.uk. And they kind of go through the whole Bible. Or not every single passage, but they go through every day, little chunk, kind of famous phrases that have passed into common parlance. And see how, again, that's another good example of how our world has been built on the Bible.
Yeah, exactly.
Just even phrases we use all the time.
365. Shakespeare might have given us maybe 100, but the Bible's given us many, many more phrases. The Bible has built our world. And it built Shakespeare's world. And Shakespeare is inexplicable outside of the context of the Bible too.
Yep.
So stay tuned for all of that. If you would like to join us at the Speak Life Foundry, we are taking on interns starting in September, and applications are open. We've had some great applications already, and we'd love to hear from you or from somebody who you think might benefit from coming to join us. So if someone is creatively minded, if someone's evangelistically minded, we want to take them and shape them in the Foundry. So we'll go on mission together, we'll study together, and we'll produce media together, and it's going to be a lot of fun. Come down to the Sunshine Coast and join Paul and I and Dan and Nick and the whole team. And you can go to speaklifefoundry.com, speaklifefoundry.com, and there's an application form there, and we'd love to hear from you. And do share the video there and share the link out with friends who you think might be good for it. If you'd like to donate to Speak Life, we exist because of the generosity of others like you. You can go to speaklife.org.uk/give, and there'll be details of multiple different ways that you can give, including tax efficiently if you're a taxpayer in the UK. But I think that ought to do us for today.
I think so.
And I think what would be a fitting way to leave people?
I don't have it.
You don't have it? Oh, man!
That's why that video died, because I tried to add it, but this stupid program tried to add something, just cut what I was doing, so...
Man.
Maybe I'll just post. I'll post 10 hours of it on my Speak Life YouTube page.
Do you want to finish with the opening monologue? That'll be fun.
Okay.
The top social media.
So
tips.
just in case you're out there and you're thinking, I don't know whether I'm quite at the level to apply for the Foundry.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, all you've got to do is surpass this level, and you're probably on track. So.
Yeah. Awesome.
So we'll say goodbye and see you next week. And we'll
Have a great
with our
week.
monologue. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Hey, you! Unsure of what to post on social media? Feeling out of your depth when it comes to global politics? Behind the times on the latest trends? Not completely sure which opinion will get you pilloried by mobs of angry strangers? Then try not posting anything! That's right, not posting anything is the new craze that's not sweeping the internet. Join the movement that literally no one has thought of as you let righteous indignation just sweep on past. Just take this hapless moron, Wayne. Ever since making Facebook posts on US politics, Wayne's IQ has dropped 15 points, and he's developed shingles. Don't be like Wayne. Start doing what no one on the internet has thought of. Try not posting anything.
But wait, I'm a Christian. I want to have a distinctive voice online.
We're glad to hear it, Bill. Here then is our foolproof 3-step plan. Step 1 we've already covered. Don't post stuff you don't understand. Step 2, make it clear in your bio that you're a Christian. Some prefer follower of the way, disciple of the Galilean, Padawan to the Nazarene. Or, if you're not ridiculously obtuse, maybe try Christian. That's step 2, state clearly that you're a Christian. And then step 3, and this one really is key, people, don't be a jerk. That's right, against all contrary inclinations and against the entire tide of jerkness engulfing the web, try not to be a jerk. Those steps again: resist the urge to post on things you don't understand, make plain that you're a Christian, and don't be a jerk. Follow these simple rules and you too might just survive this vitriolic shame storm we call social media.